and I can go live. And huzzah, we are live. Okay, good. Good. All that is looking good. That's paused, and that's muted, and that's muted, and now paused, and now that's set up. There's something else that I'm forgetting. There's another something else that... Oh, that's too much. We got double cats on stream today. Actually, let me turn that a little bit so... Two kitties on stream today. Which we might... Thank you. We might be doing more often. Was already ready to go. I don't need a checklist. I've got Jane. Thank you so much for all your help, Jane. I really appreciate it. It's amazing I can get any of this done without some kind of assistance. Similarly, I had an experience yesterday that's welcome in. It's great to see you, Jane. Thank you for all your help. It's great to see you today, Jane. Akaya Matara, great to see you. Welcome in. But yeah, this a student called me on the phone, which is something that I'm still really not very used to. I think I might hate the glare on my face. We might have to play with some settings. But this student I actually like especially teachers are not supposed to have favorites, but they absolutely do. I'm sure that most of them do. I definitely do. Every semester I have students that are really awesome, who are just interested and interesting. Right, both of those things work together really well in a philosophy class, and this is one of those students. But like, as a side note, as we were ending and getting off the phone, the student was like, "Oh, by the way, what's going on with modules 7, 11, and heck, I can't remember, 14?" And I was like, what do you mean? And the student said, well, I haven't been able to access them all semester. I was hoping I could go ahead and, look ahead. We're almost done with the midterm. Week 9 is going to be right there after the midterm. I wanted to go ahead and start looking ahead at that stuff. And I was like, it's not, it's not available to you. It should have been available a month ago. And no, it turns out that there was quite a few things that at the beginning of the semester, you do the things, and I thought that I had done all of the things, but it turns out there was quite a few things left undone, but it ended up not being that big of a deal. I thought at that time, when the student was on the phone with me, and I was like, what are you talking about? And I went and looked and saw what was going on with my Canvas shell. I was like, I have to cancel stream tomorrow. There's so much work to do, but it took me minutes, really. And speaking of, on a similar note, that I uploaded the VOD Thursdays, Wednesdays, VOD from Twitch. I downloaded it and uploaded it. It really didn't take me all of that long. It wasn't that much trouble. It wasn't a big deal at all. So all of that time that I spent on stream where I was seething mad about this major inconvenience that was going to take a whole bunch of my time and be a whole lot of effort was really not a big deal. It was me making a mountain out of a molehill, I guess. So, excuse me. But On Wednesday, I was talking about that I would have time this morning to do a whole bunch of stuff for stream that I did not have time for. I had to run some errands this morning, and then the hour and a half of errands turned into 4 hours of errands. But I got everything done, so there's that. But that means that I was not able to spend a lot of time preparing content before stream today, which is okay because we actually kind of have a backlog of stuff to go through. Why is it not showing that already? Okay, there we go. That's still not the right one, though. Oh, it's because it readjusted my... I don't know why it does this. Whenever there's an update to OBS, one of the things that OBS does is it will, all of my widgets that I have lined up at the bottom, it resizes the widgets so that all of the text that I need to be able to see, to be able to tell what my sources are, it all just disappears. And then I can't figure out what's going on because, but it doesn't matter. Anyways, I'm glad that the update did not interfere with stream too much. Also, how does everybody feel about the camera in the new position? I'm not sure that I really like it or that I'm happy with it, but I was tooling around with it yesterday, and I didn't have time to do any more rearranging before stream today, so here it is. I can pop it back over to the other spot pretty easily if I need to, but I figured I'd give it a shot. I'm kind of hating it so far. But anyways, did we talk about this video? Did we go over this video on stream? I can't remember if I got around to playing the video, or it's one of those things where I meant to, and then we talked, and I just kept talking and talking and talking, and then we never got around to watching it, or if we did watch it. I know that we watched the Zoe Baker's Means Ends video on stream Wednesday, and that was just, man, it was so great. Zoe Baker is always delivers. But I can't remember if we ever... No, we haven't gotten to it yet. Okay, well, then that saves me the trouble of having to find a whole lot of content to cover today, because there is an amazing amount of content in this video. Kaimatara, you say it's alright, but there's an exclamation point, so it's like extra alright, like super good alright, or just like alright. You know, like alright is I don't know, it's maybe it's just some getting used to. The angle is something that looks a little bit odd. And it looks like I'm looking that way, not toward the content. Like, I feel like I should be looking that direction toward the content. Though I guess I could flip the camera. That would really break my brain, though, probably. But that's okay. Either way. Good. So this is this would be bringing everything back full circle. So we'll have to do some work, I think, before we get to the video. Man, I wish I'd had time to watch the a little bit of last stream before I started this stream, because I bet if I'd watched the last 10 minutes of last stream, I'd be able to pick right up and from where we left off. We are talking about disposability and how it affects our leftist movements. It's also something that is starting to get me to rethink about other stuff. Let me expound upon that. That's not very clear. So I think that I would probably not be alone in the sentiment that sometimes it's difficult to take certain people or certain ideas seriously. I don't know if I'm setting this up the right way. I think, no, here we go. This might be a good way to set it up. I believe that I have more of a tendency and or habit to dismiss people than I think I had realized, if that makes sense. Now that I've been playing with these ideas of disposability as a concept, I think that I'm becoming more critical of me in a way. I really don't know how to put words to this. I guess I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about it, but it's something that's just been kind of scratching my brain. It might be the case that, well, now let me just explain this term. So there's a philosophical idea called incorrigibility. And it's not just a philosophical idea. It's a word that you've probably heard before. That person is incorrigible, or you're incorrigible. What this means is you are beyond correction. Oh, you are too bad. You're so bad that you are just irredeemably bad. And usually it's meant in kind of a playful way. Hold that thought. My whole face is washing out. I'm gonna see if I can change the light a little bit. Is that better? Is that actually better? No, it's no better. It doesn't look different at all. More light in the room. Well, I look less washed out in general, but this part is extremely more washed out. Anyway, I'll just be washed out for a little bit. Apolitical Daddy, welcome in. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're having a good day. Incorrigibility. So what it means is beyond correction. Philosophically, when we talk about incorrigibility, it means that what you have some kind of knowledge. Oh yeah, that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about the distinction between truth and knowledge. Oh, that's going to be hard for me to the distinction between truth and knowledge. Right. So when people have knowledge, this is something that takes up space metaphorically in their mind. And the space that it takes up won't permit any other ideas to enter into that space. So if I saw my friend, right, if I'm in town and I'm walking around town and it looks like I saw my friend walk around the corner a block away, but I think to myself, that can't be the case because my friend is out of town right now, right? But I saw them. So my brain is so sure I need to go check. I need to walk a block down that way and put my eyes on my friend. or see that person who looks so much like my friend, right? I'm sure that I've seen them. And your brain becomes incorrigible, and it won't allow for other ideas to push that out unless you force it with introducing new information which either confirms or denies. But most people don't go through the process of verifying the information that's the knowledge that they hold. And they hold the knowledge incorrigibly. That is, this thing becomes affixed and is now axiomatic to how somebody thinks, to how somebody understands the world. And you can't they won't just change their mind. Change of mind is not even the right way to think about it. Because changing someone's mind on something, right? When we think about that, for somebody to change their mind, there has to be the possibility, right? They have to be able to entertain the possibility that they could be wrong. And incorrigibility is not that kind of knowledge. It's a kind of knowledge that you have, that you hold, that's now static entirely. So where am I getting with this? So incorrigibility, what this will do to us is that when we're going through our day, say, trying to think of an example, like, let's say that you are complaining about you're complaining about your stomach is a little bit upset. And a friend of yours says, well, maybe make some mint tea. That might help your stomach. And you're like, no, mint tea is not going to help my stomach. Right, this kind of incorrigible idea where you know yourself so well that no, I'm not even going to entertain that idea. I don't need to. And this is the kind of thing that I'm trying to clue into myself. I think that sometimes I have an automatic assumption that I'm right about everything, right? That I really know, that I remember, that I am not mistaken. And the conversation that we've been having over the last few days, the last few weeks, has got me to really reevaluate my own incorrigibility. I believe that I had thought that I was the kind of person that didn't have those preconceived, locked in ideas anymore. As a philosopher, I'm so used to being wrong. I'm so used to being disproven or having holes poked in my ideas that I'm comfortable with being wrong and admitting when I'm wrong and understanding when I need to seek out new information. Or so I thought. I think that there's still a lot more for me to do to help me absolve my problems with clinging on to certain ideas and habitually, reflexively discounting other certain kinds of ideas or the introduction of certain information or those kinds of things. Does this make sense? Does knowledge make you closed-minded at some point? Yes. Apolitical Daddy, yes. Yes, that is such a good question. Just, yes. I cannot stress yes enough. That's the problem of philosophy in general, that Gadamer talks about. It's the problem of philosophical tradition. I've mentioned this a few times. The way that I have been classically trained by classically trained philosophers. What that means is there is a certain kind of Western academic tradition that goes into the pedagogy of how philosophy is taught to philosophers. So those philosophers then carry on the legacy of teaching philosophy in a certain particular kind of way. And pedagogies are very helpful for sciences and for mathematics, especially for studies which don't change or are resistant to change or are supposed to be. Science is supposed to be somewhat resistant to change. Philosophy is not supposed to be somewhat resistant to change. It should be flexible and organic and able to do whatever and adapt to whatever, however it needs to help us understand the world, right? Philosophy needs to be flexible for us so that, because we are flexible beings. And so there's a tendency. This is the problem of feminism, right? As an academic study for literally hundreds of years, brilliant women were writing philosophy, and it was just being chucked in the garbage. It was just being completely ignored, completely overlooked, and it's not just because of sexism in the workplace and sexism in the people who are maintaining these apparatuses, but it's because privileged white men who assume that they're right about everything all of the time believe that they know now. I've done the digging, I've invested the time and energy and effort, I know. I am now going to act as a gatekeeper. Right? Now I get to be the boss of what is true and what is right and what is taught as right and true. And those bosses were incorrigible. They believed ideas that they didn't necessarily have good reason to believe were as concrete as they believed them. Okay, should always, so we should always exercise skepticism. Yes. Systematic skepticism. There's a whole lot of stuff that Kai Mataro just put in chat, and I'll get to that in just a moment. But to answer this to Jane, this is also a really good question. We need to employ a kind of systematic skepticism. And the distinction is that we don't want our skepticism to go so far that we lock ourselves into a kind of cynicism where we refuse to believe anything, which is very possible. If we follow René Descartes through his meditations and the way that he was trying to eliminate that which can be doubted, it's something that a lot of the meditations is garbage, which I've talked about before. But that part specifically, Jane, where Descartes is talking about that we need to be skeptical, we need to have doubts about things, but we also need to have limits on our doubts so that we understand. This is it's one of my favorite things. This is epistemology. How we determine truth and knowledge, which are separate things. We'll talk about that. How we determine what is true, how we determine what is knowledge, and how we determine that which we know from that which we don't know, and how we determine those things from that which cannot be known, right? There are formal processes and frameworks that we can use in metaphysics or in epistemology for that, so that we can exclude whole possibilities without excluding all of the possibilities. Good. So there's a whole lot of stuff. Good. Have you ever wondered why the police function as Department of Correction or correction officers? Looking through a legal lens, this makes sense. However, looking through a wider societal lens, such as the crackdown on peaceful protesters, we see that their correction has a wider, more damaging definition. Okay. To understand what I mean, I'm going to give you a command. I would like you to do etu. If you don't understand Maori, you likely didn't follow this command. Right, and I didn't. This illustrates that following commands requires a level of understanding. It would be impossible for you to know what I asked you to stand up if you didn't understand what I asked of you. Okay. To understand an order, you must already be the equal of the one who gives it, at least equal in understanding, correct? Though I have that video pulled up that you shared. No, not that you shared. That you wrote an article about. You had mentioned this in your article. I have watched it. It's really fantastic. And I think that that's probably somewhat related to what we're talking about, right? When it comes to when you say being equal, you must already be the equal of the one who gives it. Understanding implies a shared capacity for reason or language. In that sense, the person who obeys is equal in intellect or humanity to the one who commands. And dialectically, it must be, right? The command obey system, society's hierarchy, only works because the obedient person is already equal in capacity to understanding and challenge the command. In capacity to understand and challenge the command. Now that you know the command, you inherently also have the capacity to ignore or even rebel against that command, which I didn't. It's power that I didn't have before I had that information. Seriously, now that you know that I asked you to stand up, I am willing to wager that most of you reading this, in fact, did not stand up. Right. Right. Here's where the correction comes in, because to understand a command, you must necessarily understand that you have the capacity to reject and rebel. It becomes paramount to the police order to correct that contradiction. Here's where the correction comes in. I see. Biologically speaking, it's so there are certain cells in your body that serve as kind of enforcers in this way. That if they detect that there are certain other cells around them that aren't functioning correctly, or that are operating in this particular other kind of way, that there are like kind of police cells that we have in our body that will go and correct, right? Go to correct those problematic cells. I also like thinking about it in kind of I don't know, human as a single organism kind of way. It is the case that your own body, within your own body, is not always in accord when different elements within yourself are not in harmony, you experience discomfort or something, right? Maybe you're nauseous, or maybe you throw up, or maybe you have diarrhea, or maybe you have a fever, or, right? Then in these cases, some parts of your body are working with other parts of your body to change them in a particular kind of way. Or sometimes you have parts of your body that are actually working against each other. And sometimes I think of humanity in this organic kind of way, in that right now, the human race is a toddler body, like a little itty bitty baby toddler that is still flailing about, that still doesn't understand what its individual parts are, or how those individual parts are supposed to function. I think in a lot of ways, when I think about humanity, or I guess I should put it this way, this is part of the reason why I still maintain some optimism about the human race, and why I am not quite so, what's the word? Misanthropic. That my lack of misanthropy, I'm not sure how that's, I've read it a bunch, but I'm not, I believe that the reason why I still maintain optimism is this kind of perspective. I see humanity, the human race, as an infant toddler, as a little shitty on itself baby that is still trying to figure out its ass from its elbow, right? And trying to figure out what its various parts do and how those are supposed to function as a coherent organism. In its nascent phase, maybe. Thinking you're an authority might make you less of an authority. Exactly, apolitical daddy. That is exactly the point that I was trying to make there. Is that believing, rather, and it's this incorrigibility. It's a lack of humility. And that's maybe that's way part of the way that I should phrase it to myself. Sometimes people don't like to say certain things out loud about themselves. I'm a coward, or I'm whatever. That I'm too proud, right? I lack the humility. And I think that maybe, I mean, for sure, I'm absolutely confident that I am still not nearly humble enough, as somebody who has enjoyed a tremendous amount of privilege their entire life, right? That's, it's hard to just overcome one's worldview. Despite all of my efforts, for the last 2 to 3 decades, well, yeah, about 2 decades, I've been trying to change my worldview in this radical kind of way. They'd be hard to know how much you overestimate or underestimate yourself. Well, yes and no. So yes, the check for that apolitical daddy is supposed to be other people. But what happens in academia is you get these rooms of academic circle jerks, where you just get enough people in that particular field who all are completely sure about this idea or this worldview, and then they just sit there and won't let anybody else into the circle jerk, because they're so sure that they've got it, right? That they act as gatekeepers that keep anybody out that will push back on their ideas. Again, alluding back to the problems with feminism in Western philosophy for the last few hundred years. Right, in the Eurocentric. No, I came up with the word for this. Fuck. I came up with the word for this, and I forgot what the word I was going to use is. Instead of saying Western, because Western academic tradition is beyond Aristotle and this limited. It is Eurocentric, but that's not the word that I came up with. Man, I had the word, but I can't remember what the word was that I was using. Well, I got it from some other philosophy, so maybe I'll remember later when I go back and reread that philosophy. But yeah, that's why authority is so fragile and requires constant, nonstop effort to uphold. And that's again, yes, exactly. With those academic circle jerks, that's what it is. Is it requires? It's funny. It requires enough people who are fragile enough, right? And that has to be part of it too. That they have to be insecure. They have to be so insecure that they are the kind of person that systematically shuts down other people's ideas and systematically refuses to entertain that they could be wrong. Humanity, better. Well, Apolitical Daddy, you say there are always people better than me and more humble than me, but better is relative. Which comment? I don't have a mod in here. There's a way. Hold on, let me look it up. Which delete last? Because there's a command that you can put in that will delete your last. Exclamation point vanish should make your last few comments disappear, assuming that that's in my well, I'll just get rid of them for you, and then you don't have to worry about it. So I have to open this in a different mode. I'm sorry, it's going to be a second. Pro streamer here. Oh, is there a stream, like a subathon going on today? I don't know what that means. I've never really done a subathon. Okay. So how do I? Come on now. Really? Oh, my comments. No, that's not how to do it. Heck, damn it. Oh, I can maybe do it this way. Messages, no. Thank you all for your patience while I'm trying to figure out This is so weird. I've done this before. I know how to do stuff. Whispers. Those are bands. No, that's not at all the right thing. No, it's not. It's not your fault. Apolitical daddy. I'm sorry, I don't know how to do the thing. I really don't. I don't understand why I can't just. Because I should be able to just delete whatever messages that I want to. It's something that I've literally done. Maybe if I pop it out, it'll give me different options. I doubt it. Yeah, I'm close to giving up on it. Yeah, there's that. Yeah, here's the messages. Perch. Yep. Yep, I'm giving up. Sorry. I thought that I could figure out how to do that really easily, but I don't know why I don't know how to do that. I'll have to do some looking up and figure that out because I need to know how to delete messages in the middle of my stream. That's a little bit embarrassing, but I will absolutely figure that out later. But yeah, it's okay. You didn't say anything that's like offensive or anything, so Sun is a stream where all the new sub add time to the total stream time and can feature a maximum time limit. Okay. Total stream time. Okay. Yeah, I'm not really interested in doing that. I didn't think I was gonna be, but I saw that a bunch of other people were doing subathon things, and so I was like, well, maybe I should know what that is. Oh, that's why that I can. All right. Anyway, well, that's an OBS. Wait a minute. Maybe this is easier than I thought. Nope. Okay. I thought maybe I'll try one more thing, but no. Okay. Okay. So back to talking about the philosophy stuff. All right. The incorrigibility. So there are some feedback problems. I want to go back and talk about this thing that Kaya Matata had put here. Where'd it go? Oh, why authority is so fragile and requires non-stop effort to uphold. Right. And the thing that I wanted to go back and talk about was there is a distinction to be made. I love it when class stuff lines up with stream stuff. I was just talking about this on Tuesday. There is some nuance to be had here. It's not always a distinction, but there is some nuance. So sometimes it it turns into a distinction. Sometimes it doesn't. Is maybe what we'll say. So the authority that I have as an instructor, as a teacher, is an authority that maintains itself rather than requiring any effort from me. The authority that Congress holds is authority that requires constant maintenance and maintaining, because it's the real reason is because it's an illegitimate authority. It doesn't actually have, Congress doesn't have the right to have authority over us. That you have your own Congress, right? I was talking about the United States Congress, but you have your own Congress. Congress says, in general, work relatively the same way. And so there's some nuance and sometimes distinction to be made here. So when we talk about Congress themselves, the physical body of the humans that maintain the idea, they have authority. They are authority. The role and position of Congress itself as an idea, over and above, beyond those the people that are in it, is also authority. And that Congress has powers, and that those powers have sway over us, that we are beholden to them to some extent. To the extent that we are beholden to them is authority. Right. So in that case, from Congress, from the people, or going to the idea, or to the power that has over us, all of that authority is all illegitimate. And all of that is subject to exactly the kind of thing that you're talking about. There is a different kind of authority, though, that is more akin to the sublime. It still is authority. So, right? And I'm trying to not muddy the waters intellectually. I'm trying to be clear, because I don't want that to be a problem that we have to butt up against and there's misunderstandings about it later. That trying to think of another good example of right, that the best way to bisect a triangle is by going from corner to corner, right? That is a truth that is itself sublime, in that once you've seen the concept demonstrated, it's incontrovertible. Once you grasp that idea, your brain cannot, right, just cast it aside. It now becomes what you believe is true about the world. It becomes knowledge. And it does so because the authority of the knowledge itself. Good. I think hopefully that distinction is going to be helpful and not confusing. Did you change your mind on some philosophy recently? Well, no, not really. Apolitical Daddy, I will say that there's quite a few things recently that I've had pause about, things that I have been kind of sure about that I'm a little bit more shaky on. A good example is that we were talking about In stream the other day, we were talking about Rawls's distributed paradigm and all of the ideas around. We were talking about the difference between equality and equity, and Kayamatara was pushing back on something that I had said about equity, and they said that they thought that it was more appropriate that we should be driving towards equality. And in that conversation, I was going to great lengths to defend the ideas of John Rawls, and 2/3 of the way through the conversation, it dawned on me that I should probably be more thoughtful and considerate about what we're talking about, rather than assuming that I know in some concrete way that this distinction needs to be made, or that difference was really important, or that I understand the difference that Kayamatara was trying to convey. So I started out that conversation very sure about what I was talking about, where I was going, and the points that I was going to make. And the more grappling with those things, the more I'm inclined to reconsider them in a more thorough way. Just because you have expertise in one area doesn't make you an authority on any other area or topic. Wow, absolutely. I feel like we need to email that one to Jordan Peterson. I feel like I completely agree with you. And did I say triangle? Did I say bisect a triangle? did I say bisect? You can't no, that doesn't work that way. Bisect a square. Yes, I meant square. Thank you. That's the best way to bisect a square, is going from corner to corner. That's what I meant to say. The thing that messes me up, I probably have done that several times in the classroom. The thing that messes me up is that I refer back to, when I'm talking about the sublime and the authority of the sublime, I refer back to Immanuel Kant's treatment of these ideas. And in that treatment, Immanuel Kant uses squares and triangles to illustrate the point of how we come to understand things by way of pure reason, and then how we do a test of validity, or test of reason within, right? We can count the sides. We can count the sides of a thing to know what it is, and without mistake, right? We don't need to be concerned about our incorrigibility. We don't need to be concerned about our incorrigibility when distinguishing between triangles and squares. We can count the sides. 3 is a triangle, 4 is a square, right? And that's that. I'm oversimplifying it, so it's not as profound. I don't know, but when you take that walk with Immanuel Kant, it's a journey through squares and triangles. What kind of students do I have? All kind. This semester I have quite a few young ones, but I've also got probably a larger percentage than usual of non-traditional students, people who are middle-aged or even a little bit older sometimes. But most of my students are really very young. So I've got, in fact, the students that are most active. I mentioned the student that I had a phone call with yesterday. that is one of my favorite students. I'm not sure how old they are, but they sound like they're barely out of high school. And one of the other students that the first day I had them in class, to be honest, they were really very frustrating. I don't know if I've talked about this yet. This disruptive student. So let me take a second and talk about this sort of disruptive student, because this has also been equal parts humbling, but also so very exciting for me. So I have this student who is a smarty pants know-it-all, and was immediately right out the gate. The class had not even been going on for 7 minutes before the student started asking questions that were going to be really, really hard to answer. The class, we haven't learned anything yet. I'm just trying to introduce you to the class and introduce you to how to navigate the online thing, and tell you where to find the course schedule. And this student is talking to me about life and death and God and how do we, and I'm just like, oh gods, and it only got worse. it only escalated. We got through the first class and I thought, okay, surely the next class won't be so bad. And it was worse. And it was very disruptive. And after the first class, the second class, I remember thinking to myself, how am I going to deal with this disruptive student? And almost as kind of an epiphany, I thought back to what it was like to be a student and to remember having dealt with instructors who were clearly frustrated, who were exacerbated, who were at their wits' end, who were done, who were fed up with disruptions, and how their attitude killed the ability for students to learn in the classroom, right? That professors who are trying to deal with a disruption are not good instructors. They're not teaching. And they're not. And with this realization, it occurred to me that the last few semesters, I had no disruptive students. So what was happening is I was turning on the Zoom, and I was looking at all the faces that are looking at me in the Zoom thing, and then I just talk. Blah, 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 blah. An hour later, I'm done talking about the stuff on the lecture. They don't have any questions. We end the class. Cool. Right? And it was easy because nobody was insisting on understanding the concepts before we moved on. Until this disruptive student who, my class this semester is on fire. It has been such an amazing difference that I have people who are showing up to the classroom now who have questions about the reading, who want to ask me questions rather than me just saying the things that are on the lecture at them, right? This disruption has enabled the class to actually break out of the academic on wheels framework where you go to class to get the stuff you need for your test so that you can pass the test without the critical reflection, right? The disruption has made the classroom go off of rails, which means that the students are actually learning stuff. That they actually care about the material that we're talking about because, they get the opportunity now to stop the whole class. I've set a precedent. I will stop the whole class and explain this exhaustively until you understand. Right? I have proven that I will do that for the disruptive student time and time and time again. And since I have been encouraging the disruptive student, the other students are being disruptive too. It's fantastic. It's infectious. I didn't see that apolitical. That question's like, can you delete my comment? No, you're fine, apolitical daddy. You're no problem at all. Well, I allow questions always, yes. And I've always encouraged it, and I've had lots of classes where kids show up and they want to learn, they're curious about stuff, and it's very engaging, but it hadn't occurred to me that for the last few semesters, nobody was showing up with the questions and nobody was showing up interested in engaging, and that I was taking the easy route of just, okay, well, even though this class is 2 hours and 45 minutes, right? So once a week it meets 2 hours and 45 minutes. And the most of the time I can get through all of the stuff in the lecture in 1 hour. 1 hour and 15 minutes usually if I'm get a little bit off topic. But every one of my classes this semester has been over 2 hours. Every single one. And most of them run to the time, and many of them have gone over 15, 20, some of them have gone over even 30 or 40 minutes past the time. That students are still sitting in front of the camera, listening and engaging and interested in learning. And it was, I had to recognize, because at first what I wanted was the disruption to go away. I wanted that disruptive student to just stop asking all of the questions that were disrupting the class. And this realization helps me understand all of the flaws with academia. These students, for most of their careers as students, haven't had the time to stop to make sure that they understand the information. I remember what it was like to be a student. I took this statistics class one time. I still have no idea what the class was about at all. Zero comprehension, because I would I would get to class early every day, because the instructor would already be in the class and the board would be full. One of those dry erase boards, from one end to the other. By the time I got there 10 or 15 minutes early, the board is full. And I would just sit down, bust out my notebook, and start notes. And just start writing notes, and start writing notes. And then the class would start, and the instructor would start to erase the stuff that was on the board and start to write more stuff. And I would just take notes, the whole class. And I would finish class, and I would go right to the computer lab, and I would do my homework while it was all still fresh in my mind. And I have no idea what the class was about, what I learned. I did no practical application. There was lots of formulas. We used Excel to do massive mathematical computations to find differences in GDP, but I don't know. I don't know what that class was different from my other classes, other than I just showed up and never had time to understand anything. I was so busy just trying to retain the information so that I could pass the class, which I barely did, that I never had the time to stop and figure out what the information was for. To figure out what the point of learning that stuff was. The whole class was a waste from beginning to end for me, because it was nothing but me taking notes, going to the computer lab, hammering out some kind of assignment that was getting good grades. Comprehension didn't matter. and it doesn't when you're a college student. Um, so it's just kind of eye opening, right? And as eye opening for me as somebody that that cares so much about actually engaging the students and actually getting them to critically reflect on things. That's the whole reason why I do this. I get paid fucking peanuts to be a professor. The reason why I do it is because it will do good in the world. It will make those individuals' lives better in and of themselves. And if their lives are better, they will make the world better around them. And that's why I'm doing the thing. And by putting students on rails, they never take the time to look at those important critical reflective things that they need to understand that these are tools that they can use, but they need to understand how to use the tools. Right? So Twitch chatters are effective students. Yes. Yes. Well, and it's the one of the reasons why I like Twitch so much more than classroom dynamics is going back. It's funny, let's bring this whole thing full circle. Is going back to a. So, this is now making some of that nuanced distinction where there's going to be authority and then there's going to be that other thing that we were talking about that's more like Congress. So, as a professor or an instructor or a teacher, I have a natural authority as the knower of the things to gatekeep in a constructive, productive way, right? I don't gatekeep to keep people out. I gatekeep because I literally cannot flood somebody with all of the information. It will be overwhelming and they won't understand it. So I gatekeep in that I start here and then I go to this and then I go to this and then I go, right? It's gatekeeping. It's literally the same thing with a different telos, right? And right, it just I want everybody to really think about the bad kind of gatekeeping thing is what instructors do on purpose. But the telos is different. I'm not gatekeeping to keep people out. I'm gatekeeping so that the information flows productively from what I know to what the student will care about. Right? So that's a different kind of gatekeeping. Not a different kind of gatekeeping, a gatekeeping with a different telos. Oh, right, different authority. The problem is that I have a different kind of illegitimate authority that also pervades the classroom. In that I have the power. I have the power to ruin my students' lives. They are aware of this power. It's part of the college experience that not only can I fail you, which I have the power to fail you, but I have the power to put serious marks on your academic record that aren't going to go away. I can get you kicked out of college if I wanted to, right? I can ruin your life. And this is a power that the students know that I have. It's a power that I hold with great reverence and would never abuse. But they don't know that. They don't have any kind of guarantees about the kind of person I am or how I'm going to use my authority, right? They are at my mercy. And because of this, that dynamic interferes with productive classroom conversations. I have no doubt. And a good example is chatters on Twitch, right? You don't have anything to fear from me. Nothing. Right? The best thing that I can do so far as consequences is a little bit of social ridicule in front of 4 other viewers, or banning you from the channel, which harms me as much, if not more so, than harming you anyway. I can't harm you without harming myself. Yes, we do have some lag. Thank you for pointing that out. I hope you all didn't miss too much of it. But good. I'm glad that you're back. Looks like the connection's getting better. But yeah, so and that's that other kind of authority. And I don't have to maintain that authority, but the college does, and there are whole hosts of other institutions that maintain that illegitimate power / authority, that prevents students from having the kinds of insightful pushback that keep me on my toes and help keep me accountable and make the conversation more lively and more productive. I think that some students in the classroom don't care about the repercussions. I think that some students understand that there's a risk of the repercussions, and then they take the risk anyway. But I would guess that the vast majority, probably 80%, if not more, of my students keep their heads down and keep their mouths shut. Or they keep the kinds of pushbacks and the kinds of ideas that they want to champion in chat in the classroom to be very limited. My long comment about authority is going to in a future article, though I'm a bit stuck. I need a good example of the group that is contrary to police. I could use people or citizens, but it feels insufficient because there's a more wider critique on authority in general. Yes, I would start with union busting. Would be probably the first place that I would go to for a very, very tense and historically volatile relationship between unions and the union busting police. I think that would be a good place to really focus on I'm trying to think of it's very gangster. It's very extortive, but it's paternalistic in an abusive way, right? It's the police are beating up the union busters, the union workers because the union doesn't know, right? That what's for its own good, kind of thing is, well, that's not really. But anyways, but I think that might be unions might be a good point of conflict there for a group to focus on. That and a group that is almost always targeted and demonized by the police, similarly to the way that regular unions function, but it's further different for them. So it'll look similar in character, but will have its own differences there. Right? I think that there would be some. And now that I'm thinking about, maybe there's not a lot of important distinctions to be made there, but other than pointing out the hypocrisy, might be me, but I am really bad at being taught things by teachers versus trying to study it on my own. Well, I believe that apolitical daddy, and it might have to do with that instructors just often don't feel like they have the time to take the time. And this is something that I feel too. So I had a student, in fact, I might even email this student later today. I had a student that reached out to me on Monday about something for the discussion board, and they wanted to talk about the legal erosion of power that that we're seeing here in the United States. The way that judges are making determinations which are having sweeping legislative-like effects over people's lives, as opposed to, in the vein of, a lot of the trans rights stuff, in regard to a lot of what's going on college campuses, in regard to people's right to peaceably protest and assemble. These are all things, legal battles that are underway that are getting lost. Right? We are losing all of those battles on all of those fronts right now. And the student was concerned about it. And they reached out about it. And I gave them kind of a dodgy answer, right? I'm never going to be like, yes, Trump is shit, and this administration is tearing the country apart, right? That's not what I do as an instructor. What I do is I go, okay, let me help you find out more information about this thing that you were already interested in. And I provided them with some resources, and I said, when I was like, here, there's this and this, and go check these things out. You might want to look into this, and this is the language in the Constitution that you might want to look into. And I'm sure you're going to have more questions. So start to do some research on this, and then get back to me, and then we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it some more. And the student hasn't gotten back to me yet. And I'm like, you have to have more questions. there will be more questions. But I'm kind of concerned that the student was just like, oh, I don't have time to research all of that stuff, so I'll just do something easier. But yeah, I think that might be a large part of it. Apolitical Daddy, is that instructors it's hard. It's hard to find the time to really give careful, thoughtful, considerate feedback to students, especially when a lot of them really don't even read it. Why should we even have grades in the first place? We should not, actually. There is lots of conversations about eliminating grades entirely in colleges, even. And this has got so many people are really upset about it. It's really funny. The way that people get upset about this is, I'm not trying to mock my peers, other educators who are college professors. You're doing a bang up job. Keep at it. But I have seen a lot of, this is interesting. Give me just one moment. Good. Yeah, that was a helpful conversation, because there's something that I have going on tonight that I'd completely forgotten about again somehow. Sitting right here on my calendar. Why do I even have a calendar if I'm not going to look at it? Why should we? Yeah, we should not have grades in the first place. We are talking about getting rid of them, to some degree. Well, okay. Let me. Because I was going to go and disparage some other people that are other professors that have some concerns, and there's just not any reason to do that. I'll just talk about myself and my own thing. So when I first started teaching, there was a lot of pedagogical tactics that I adopted that I had gotten from my college instructors. The college instructors that I had in college that I liked, I'm going to use some of their policies and some of their practices, some of the ways that they orchestrate their classroom. Um, but but a lot of that stuff did not end up serving me very well. I um I was having students that would lose points for silly arbitrary things because I cared about a certain kind of thing in the response that I wanted because I thought that I knew everything and I wanted them to know the things that I knew, right? And the students were not very engaged with that content. But also, my quizzes, I didn't have discussion boards. I didn't think that discussion boards were that helpful. I didn't like doing discussion boards as a student, so I didn't use them. I didn't think that they were a useful tool that students wanted to engage with, so I didn't use discussion boards. And my quizzes all had late penalties. So you could turn it in late, but the later you turned it in, the less points that you would get. And these kinds of practices, I found, were just turning students off. They would come into the classroom and they would start to engage with the material, but then they would lose points for silly and arbitrary reasons, or they would miss an assignment and get behind, and now they're losing points over here, and now they're losing points everywhere, and what's the point? Right? Why am I even trying? And I was having students that were just giving up in my classroom. After week 3 and 4, they would just stop attending, stop turning in assignments, stop answering my emails. And I wasn't sure what to do about it, actually. But welcome in, Matt. It's good to have you. Don't worry, I won't take off many points. Literally did no homework in college, took the grade hit, but did all the major projects. And I'll deal with that because I'll have a lot to say about that directly in a minute. Were silly things to grade, maybe even knowing things like bad handwriting or how much they like the student. How do you think about that? Yes. So I'll respond to both of those. Let me finish up some of my points here. Well, I didn't really come up with a good solution for how to deal with those students who were losing interest and who were just leaving the course. I had talked about it with my dean and some of the other instructors, and they all assured me that this is just normal. You shouldn't really stress about it too much. Every semester, you're going to have a few people that are going to fail. There's not really much you can do about it. But I had read in between one of my semesters, I had read this article that was about a professor was talking about how they had improved their engagement by getting rid of all of the timed elements of their assignments. That they no longer had any due dates, and they no longer had any late penalties at all. And they saw a dramatic increase in student retention, in student comprehension, and in student performance in the course. And so I thought, well, I'll give it a shot. I'll just see what happens if I do away with the late penalties on the quizzes. And immediately there was a profound difference, because I would have students who were in, week 4 or 5, and maybe they'd missed 2 or 3 weeks of assignments, but now they really want to get caught up. Well, they can still go back to last week and the week before, and they can still get full points for those assignments. There's no reason for me to dock them points for them proving that they know how to do the things or that they understand and comprehend the philosophies. If they comprehend the philosophies, you get the points. Right? It really didn't make any sense when I thought about it. If they get to the end of the semester and they know the information, then they deserved those points. And it didn't make sense for me to have taken them off. And I would have a lot more students who were encouraged. I had less students give up because they realized that they could go back and get those points back, that there was a light at the end of the tunnel, that I was just going to be patient and graceful, and to give them the grace that they needed because they had some personal thing came up in their lives that's really important, but it's not an emergency, right? Nobody died, so they can't get out of class, right? But they had these important things that were going on in their lives, right? And I didn't want to punish students for taking care of their children when they're sick, which is what I was doing in the first few semesters that I was teaching. I was punishing people for having sick children or for having to get called into work, right? That none of that makes sense. That doesn't matter in my classroom. It doesn't have to do with the content information of the course. Good job if you figured it out. If you prove that you can do it, cool, get the points. I would do the whole course during the finals. I have students that do that, Matt, actually, but more of my students feel encouraged to work ahead because there's no late penalties, right? The first few weeks, they'll think about it rather, well, I don't have to worry about the late penalty. But once they detach the time stamp from the quizzes, then they're like, well, I can just read next week's assignment and do that quiz too. And then next week, they'll just read the 2 weeks ahead, right? Because they don't care about the time limit anymore. Right? Isn't that a strange phenomenon that when students don't care about the time limit anymore, that they're encouraged to work ahead for some reason? Or it might simply be that people generally don't like doing what they have to do. People would rather do what they choose to do, even if it's something that they have to do anyway, right? If you have hard dates and hard time limits, you have to hit those. And there's a lot of pressure and a lot of stress that builds up with those. But if you don't, then you can just choose. You can choose whenever you want to do your quizzes, and it doesn't matter. Now, my students have to participate in discussion boards, which I found out is definitely a much better way to keep them engaged. Because the discussion boards that I did when I was in undergraduate, and yeah, I'll just leave it there. And that way I don't have to worry about qualifying my graduate program discussion boards, because those are all different. But in my undergraduate, I felt that all of those were not valuable. All of the discussion board experiences that I had in my undergraduate, they were not very good uses of my time as a student. But that was just because the instructors set them up in ways that didn't make sense. The instructors set them up in ways that were easy to grade, that were easy for them to deal with and easy for them to handle. And my discussion boards aren't like that. My discussion boards are extremely challenging. Information from the quiz, right? So that you don't have to do the quiz in the week, but the discussion board is going to require that you know something about the content for the week. And then you do, with the discussion board, you give your impression of the content. So usually I'm very specific about the what content I want them to talk about. but they don't have to worry about getting that right or wrong. I want to understand I want them to tell the class how they understand it. Give us all your perspective, which is not the kind of thing that is wrong. Tell us what you think about this. Right? And then give some kind of critical reflection on how this thing that we're talking about applies directly to your life. That's what I do with my discussion board. Tell me what you think about the thing that we're talking about this week. Tell me about how you think this applies to your life. And then go to respond to other students' posts who are talking about those things, so that you can get exposed to other people's ideas, other people's understanding of those philosophical ideas, so that you can understand that truth is much more complicated than right or wrong. Right? That you can understand that there's a whole conversation around what propaganda is. It's not a thing that's really easily definable. There are 20 definitions for propaganda on this discussion board. They're all right. They're all good and valuable, useful definitions. Right? And they're all different. And that's a more true understanding of the thing that we're talking about than me getting them to regurgitate shit back to me that I want to hear. Right? Oof, I had a major issue with late assignments pretty much the entirety of my secondary education. And yeah, I was almost completely turned away from the educational system due to the compounding stress. That's what it is. You get a little bit behind and you're like, well, I'm stressed because I'm a little bit behind. And then you've got this cloud hanging over your head that makes it more difficult for you to focus. And that cloud just gets bigger and bigger as you run out of more time and you get closer to your deadlines, and now you're 2 weeks behind, double the cloud, right? And how are you supposed to get anything done when you're mentally and emotionally overwhelmed by just logging into your class? I don't want to have to do all that or do that to my students. Yeah, exactly. This was exasperated during the pandemic. Boy, isn't that true? Because one of the other really things that was terrible during the pandemic is that you had all of these in-classroom teachers who are used to using strategies that work in the classroom, that don't work at all in the digital arena. So the first few semesters after COVID, it was mayhem. It was a nightmare to work at colleges. It was, and you know, what's really sad and frustrating is this is you expressing how frustrated and exacerbated you were with the system. And the instructors were equally stressed and flipped out and just beside themselves about what was going on too, trying to figure out how to cope with the situation and almost no guidance on how to get there. After the first year of COVID, colleges started to push out lots of initiatives. They would give us special classes and seminars on tips and tricks on actually doing the job. So that helped. But the first 3 or 4 semesters after pandemic hit were mayhem. Stressed because of learning calculus in physics 3 weeks before calc covered it. Oh gods, yes. That I had a similar problem in one of my economics classes. The economics teacher was using advanced calculus, and I hadn't taken calculus yet. I was supposed to take it next semester. So luckily I was married to a mathematician at the time who had the time and patience to teach me calculus while I was taking that class before I had to take the college course. Felt like I could share this feeling with my parents or teachers because I wasn't comfortable. No, well, and that's you're often blamed, Jane, in those kinds of situations where you feel like if you reach out, like, "Hey, I'm having some stress," or "I'm having a hard time with this." Um, when I was an undergraduate, my college instructors were very heartless. Many of them. I shouldn't just say that blanketly, but you know, I had one instructor in particular who was like, "Look, this is when the essay is due for this class. There's 2 essays for this class. This is when this one's due. This is when this one is due. I won't accept them late." Right? And that's how you pass the class. 2 grades. You get 2 grades for the class. And if you turn in one of those late, it's a 0. I mean, there was no late. There was no late if you missed it. And I remember I'm thinking to myself, well, I hope I don't get sick. And I did. I got the flu a week before the paper was due. And I had to go to college campus all bundled up and with dribbling snot everywhere and sneezing and coughing. And I had to go to college campus to go to my professor's office so that I could hand in my paper. That there was no other way to do it. You had to turn it in person, on time, right? And it's just stress for no good reason. Also, I had an IEP, and even then I wasn't comfortable. Wow. Well, and that's I try to be sensitive to my students in that regard. Too, I don't know how to qualify this, but there's certain language that you or I have been able to kind of pick up from a student, where I kind of get the impression where I get the impression that I should say more. So with a lot of cases, if I'm unsure what the student is going through or what they're feeling, or, I try to keep things simple as possible and say as little as possible so I can't be misunderstood. I'm very direct to the point, and just let me know, respond if you don't understand or if you have any questions. Email me back and forth all day, right? I rather than me writing out several pages or several paragraphs in any kind of detailed response, real quick, what do you mean? But there's some students that I get a sense that maybe I should just reach out and begin a conversation with them. Not about anything in particular, or maybe it is about, I might use their essay, or I might use one of their quizzes where I just begin a conversation. And it's really wild when, you're just like, "Hey, just a little this, and, just checking in on you a little bit." And then the next thing you know, they're dumping on me. I get this massive emotional dump where they're telling me about their boyfriend, and now they've got to move, and there's this thing going on with their daughter, and their mom is driving them crazy, or, and I'll just get these, they just need some outlet. They need someone to hear them. They need someone to say, "That's a normal thing that you're going through. It's fine, and I understand. And it will be okay for you to prioritize yourself. Just do that. And then the stuff for my class will be here when you're ready." Right? And it's it takes a little bit of extra time. But when it matters, when you really touch somebody in a particular kind of way, and you know that they need it. How about that? So I'm glad you got this out too. And I'm sorry that your instructors weren't more patient and well, it's we are often overwhelmed too. We don't have the tools and resources. We are very limited in what we can say, in what we can do, in it's really hard to continue to do this job in a way that is compassionate and prioritizes the students. It really is hard to do that. The system is hard for us to take the time to care like that. Right. It's really hard to know what someone's going through. And a lot of times that's what I say is, look, I don't know what you're going through, but I understand that you need to prioritize you. Um, yeah, we don't have freedom, point blank. Exactly, Jane. I don't have the freedom any more than you have the freedom, right? The students don't, in the same way that I was talking about, the students don't have the time to take the time to retain the information, to understand it. Their goal is to get it and then pass the test. Get what I need, pass the test. Get what I need, pass the test. And they don't have freedom in that. Most of them, right? Most of those people are dealing with, they've got their own jobs and they've got other priorities going on in their life. They only have so many hours in the day, and they know that they need to invest all of those hours in getting a good job so that they don't starve and then they're homeless, right? That's the society in which we live. So they don't have freedom any more than I have freedom, really. Hmm. I will not argue with you on that, apolitical daddy. There was a few things that I wanted to speak to specifically. Um, oh, right. I don't think I responded enough with the. A lot of people. This is in response to what Matt was talking about. No due dates. I would do the whole course during the finals. Um, it's kind of surprising to me how many students do come back in the last 2 weeks, sometimes in the last week, and they'll do 7 weeks worth of work in 1 week, right before the end of class. But that's okay. I don't care. Um, I don't mind if they don't mind, and I even make that explicit in when I in the I've got an introduction thing for the quizzes that talks about the quizzes, and in that breakdown it talks about that there is no late penalty. Oh, and they get unlimited attempts. That was the other really big change that has revolutionized my classroom. Um, is that they can take the quizzes over and over and over and over again, and Canvas will keep the best of their scores. And the point of this is that the quizzes are intended for them to practice testing their knowledge, so that when they show up to the midterm or when they show up to the final, that they know what to expect because they've practiced. They've practiced the content and practiced being quizzed on the content in the exact same way that they are going to be tested on the midterm and on the final. Oh, heck, I don't believe I have this still open. Let me close that out. That's part of why my internet isn't good, is because I had Outlook open in the back. It is a resource hog when it comes to internet. But yeah, so what I explain to the students is that the quizzes are their resource. Right? The discussion board is for you to demonstrate to me and to the class that you have some kind of comprehension of the content. But if you remember, I asked them about how they feel about it, their impression of it. So it's not something that they can really get right or get wrong, right? So with the discussion board, there's a whole lot of points that I'm just throwing at them, right? That they just get the points. And this is how they earn extra credit. If they just answer the questions, just do the minimum effort and respond to other students, minimum effort, then they get 10 points. If you answer the things, you do minimum effort, you can get 10 points. You can get 12 points on each week's 16 weeks, 14, because there's always 2 weeks, so we don't have discussion boards. So that's 14 opportunities to get 20% bonus credit on your assignments, and that transfers directly to their grade at the end of the semester. So every week they have the opportunity for extra credit by demonstrating superior comprehension. And there's I've got a rubric with several ways that they can do that if they incorporate an external source, right? If we're talking about rights, and they include I'm trying to think who I wouldn't include. Who was it? Somebody did it recently. It was justice. We were having a conversation of justice, and somebody brought up roles, and we don't get to roles for another three weeks, right? So somebody went out of their way to find some external source that is not a source that I offer. It's not even the roles thing that we read in the class. It's a completely different roles thing, right? So that's a way that they can earn some extra credit on the discussion board, or by superior engagement. What I want is for there to be back and forth, and for there to be disagreement, and for students who disagree to work that out. And when they're doing their exchanges back and forth, that's another way that they can earn extra credit on the discussion board. So that's where the majority of the class actually is that they are having conversations with each other about what these concepts mean in a real and practical sense. The quizzes are just for them to practice, so that when they get to the midterm, they know that they are confident, that they know that they are prepared, because they've practiced over and over on the quizzes. And that was another big thing when I first introduced it. When I first the semester before I introduced it, I was talking with a bunch of my peers at one of our meetings, and one of the other instructors was just flabbergasted with the idea, first off, of not having late penalties for the quizzes, but also giving them unlimited attempts. Aren't you concerned that the students are going to cheat? No. On their quizzes, I don't give a fuck. No, I don't care at all. That's for them to practice. That's what my quizzes are for. They can't cheat on the midterm. They can't cheat on the final because of we've got a whole bunch of safeguards and protections there. But no, I'm not worried about that. So like if we were talking about liberation or something and the student quoted Malcolm X, yes, that is exactly, Matt. That is a good example. Or something else too. If we were talking about liberation and they brought up different revolutionary movements, or if they brought up unions as a way to liberate the working class, right? These actually have two different discussion boards where I'm kind of pushing my students in a direction that, you know, I'm hoping, and some semesters I do have lots of students that talk about unions and police and their antagonistic relationship. And this semester I probably won't. But you know, it's hit or miss. See, your hair is tied with a black velvet band. It's not velvet. It's soft. I'm pretty sure it's 100% cotton. But it is soft. Old anarchist friend. An honorary comrade. Well, welcome in, Balza Belinsky. Honorary. Good to have you. Yes, it's not cheating if they've learned. That's literally what I said. Right? Well, not literally what I said. Oh, let me rephrase this. What I said to them was, well, okay. My pushback was, well, what opportunity do you give to your students? What opportunity do you give to your students to give them the chance to earn back those points, to prove to you that they have learned that content, right? That's what I said to them at the time, and she didn't have an answer, right? And one of the other instructors was like, yes, I do that. I have late penalties for my quizzes, but students can earn their points back by going back and redoing the quiz later. And I was like, that's a good idea. Right? Because that gives the student an incentive, right? If you get one attempt at a quiz and you get 7 out of 10 points, those 3 points are lost forever. You have no reason to look at your quiz to find out what it is that you missed, to care about that information. If you can get those points back, you might want to go look at your quiz to see what you missed, to see if you can get those points back. It causes you to revisit the information, which is I thought that was the point. Welcome in. What are we talking about? We are very off topic today. We were supposed to be talking about means ends unity, and I was supposed to be talking specifically about the difference between truth and knowledge. But we haven't been talking about that. We've been talking about, well, school, education, privileged hierarchies in pedagogy. You know, you've succeeded as a philosophy teacher if your students start speaking about topics in long form and make wall of text memes. Yes, actually. There have been quite a number of occasions where, I mean, and I don't want to give myself full credit in a lot of these, but there have been instances where students start off being really quite lib. You know, they care about social issues. They care about these things. They just don't know how to care about these things. And then I start to provide them with frameworks for understanding how to go about analyzing and understanding these things. And then they're all of a sudden like, where are all these problems coming from? What is wrong with everybody that they don't know that there's all these problems that we need to solve? And I'm like, yes, yes. Sorry for all the Israelis that were captured from Hamas. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I can see where this is gonna go already. Cool. Why don't you say more stuff about that, Darius? Go ahead and Get ready. But because I have been very off topic, holy heck, it's already 4 o'clock. Oh, I started late. Okay. So I do actually want to bring us back on topic a little bit. Yeah. Well, not all, Matt. Some of them are civilians who have been armed by their government and who are an occupying force. So they're not civilians either, but they're not military. So there's a little bit of gray area. You got to remember that there are the horrible monsters that sign up to be in the military and who don't defect. And then you've also got the settlers who act as a colonizing military force, but pretend that they're civilians, even though they're armed by the government. But they weren't fighting. Yeah, whatever. Darius, whatever. You get a big W. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna go ahead and we'll give them a minute. We'll give them the rope to hang themselves. Oh, and I've got Matt in chat, so I don't have to have my fingers on all of the mod controls. Thank you for being here, Matt. I just appreciate the fact that you are here. The Jews that make genocide and Hamas that also kill people. To be clear, I believe that the genocide is being carried out by the state of Israel, which is not the same as Jewish people or the Jewish religion, and we should be nuanced and careful about how we use our language, Darius, that we don't, demonize a whole group of people, the vast majority of whom are just people. Yeah, it does claim to be a secular state too. That's a point that I often forget. That Iran, for example, is not a secular state. It is that the reason why they don't have a nuclear weapons program is because they believe that nuclear weapons are evil and against their religion, because they think that wanton death and destruction of anybody is immoral. It would be nice if more Christians would adopt that kind of attitude. Now I'm being the jerk here. Always taking low shots at the poor Christians. But yeah, 60% of Jewish people call what Israel is doing a war crime. Right. I've got lots of Jewish friends, and all of my Jewish friends think that a ceasefire should have happened 2 years ago, at least. Right? It's not that complicated, right? It's right. There's a little bit of no, that's not what I meant. I was talking about Iran. I was talking about a different country. Yeah. Thanks, Matt. But so I want to get to this distinction. I'm pretty sure, we are yet again probably not going to get to this video. No, they weren't. Darius, no, they weren't. President Trump bombed their country and used that as an excuse for bombing their country. But it was never the case. It was always not ever the case that they were not working on nuclear weapons. But I bet we won't get to this, and that's okay. But so I do want to get to this part of the conversation. So truth and knowledge. That in a lot of ways, these things have overlap. Truth and knowledge are often assumed to be the same things. But truth is kind of complicated in how we understand it, what it is, and how we adopt a truth. Knowledge is not quite so complicated, actually. That'll be easy. So with knowledge, you have to think about the kinds of knowledge that you know that is true knowledge, right? That terminal velocity is a thing which exists. This is true knowledge, and if you know stuff about terminal velocity, you know that's a real thing. The truth aspect of this knowledge that you have is verified with correspondence. Correspondence theory is kind of complicated, but it's also really very not. It's simply that when the knowledge that you have coheres with actual states affairs in the world, then what you have is truth. Determining coherence, with states of affairs in the world, that's the difficulty, because none of us have access to objective knowledge. I might not be able to do this. Hold on. They didn't permit to the World Organization for Nuclear Energy to secure the site some days after the U.S. bombed. Right. What? Right. Can you blame them, Darius? Can you blame them for not getting a permit through the UN when the United States was just going to bomb them anyway? Without UN's approval, or without UN's consent, or actually without Congress's consent, right? That we have a strong man president who believes that he has the right to just start bombing other nations because they do things that he doesn't approve of. I don't blame Iran at all for not wanting to be open and transparent about what they were doing. Because on the world stage, they are often cast as villains regardless of what they do. America gave Iran its first nuclear research facility, and as well as developing an illegal nuclear weapons capacity in Israel. Yes. And the Iran's first nuclear research facility was for medical purposes. That's there are lots of uses for the refining of nuclear material, and most of them have to do with medical advances or with science advances. We were just trying to get them a little bit caught up to us so that they could have like cancer treatment and, basic stuff like that. Two-state solution. I will say something about a two-state solution. Oh, I was wondering where you were going with that, Bazabalinski. Okay. For the genocide in Palestine, we see the genocide of Jerusalem. Okay, gotcha. Uh, Norman Finkelstein is not a lovely man. I appreciate Norman Finkelstein's advocacy for the people of Palestine, but he's also an awful transphobe. So not a lovely man. We are not a big fan of Norman Finkelstein in this chat, or I'm not anyway. Maybe other people in the chat are, but I'm not because he's a raging, hateful transphobe. How about a no state solution? I like how you think. Yeah, that's the right way to put it. Norman Finkelstein is a bigot with the right takes on Israel. There you go. That's the right way to put it. So, two-state solution. No, I don't see any need for a two-state solution. Right? I don't advocate for. I don't believe that a two-state solution is a good idea. First caveat. Let me back up. Let me back up real quick and add my first caveat. I don't live over there. I believe that the Palestinian people should have the right to self-determine, and that any opinion that I have about what they should do is only just an opinion that somebody has about what other people should maybe do in some kind of similar situation. I'm not going to evaluate the moral choices that people make in the fight for their own self-determination. Period. So that's my first caveat out of the way. My opinion about a two-state solution is that first off isn't beneficial or necessary in any way. We don't need a two-state solution. Dismantle Israel, recognize Palestine. That's it. It was there first. The people were there first. They have everything that they need to make the government work for everyone. They have that. And when we left it in the hands of the Israelis, then what they turned it into was an apartheid state. We don't need a two-state solution. We don't need to turn an ad hoc apartheid system into a codified apartheid system, right? Which is what a two-state solution would be. It will just formalize, right? In the same way that we don't want to abolish the prison, or we don't want to reform the prison system because it's trash. We want to abolish it, raise it to the ground, make something new. That's what we should do. That's the best thing at this point, is to completely obliterate Israel, the state, not people. I don't care about. I'm not making statements about the people who live there. The citizens will be fine. They can live there, right? We abolish the state, and the people can still just stay right where they are. They don't even have to move. Well, unless they're in occupied land in other people's homes. In which case then they do have to move. If those people have illegally occupied the homes of other people who were living there last month or last year, well, those people can yeet the fuck out. Right? But for the most part, people can stay where they are with regard to Israelis anyway. Oh, I think there was a big. I did not read this. Cannot be. Yeah, I did not read this. My argument is that you cannot be a pro-Palestine Israeli. Just as you cannot be pro-Maori New Zealander. Your identity as those nation states legitimize the colonial expansion there because you're compliant in the identity. Same for America, etc. Settlers need to abolish themselves as settlers to abolish colonialism, as the proletariat needs to abolish themselves as proletariat to abolish capitalism. Well said, Kaimatara. Absolutely well said. I could not agree with everything you said there more. Um, and that is exactly right too. About I think that there are a lot of people who live in America who still have that American problem. Who they pretend, excuse me, they pretend like they can be pro-indigenous and American, which you can't. Land back. That's it. Land back. That's it. The country, who cares? Land back. Who cares about the flag? Who cares about any of the legal documents? Right? Because I literally don't. Constitution, I don't think it's really that helpful, actually. It doesn't seem to be doing a whole lot for us, right? They are just deporting people without due process. They don't care about the First Amendment rights of the people at Standing Rock any more than they care about the First Amendment rights of kids on college campuses who are protesting Palestine, right? Protesting on behalf of Palestine. So, we already don't have constitutional protections. The existence of police negate your constitutional protections if you live in the United States. You don't have the right to life. If you don't have the right to defend yourself against the police, which you don't, they have the right to murder you on the spot. To murder you if they fear for their life. You don't. You don't have the right to life if you live in the United States. You simply don't. That constitutional protection. It's imaginary. It's not real. Let's be honest. As soon as Palestine gets any kind of independence, they'll flee like South Africa. Yeah, I mean, the economic structure of Israel is a real problem. What do you mean by that, Bazabalinsky? I got it the first time, Bazabalinsky. It is the colonial economic that dictate in Israel. Okay, I gotcha. Okay, yeah, I got it. Guess I'm no longer American. There you go. Yeah, I'm rejecting the settler identity as a white person. Yeah, and that's all you have to do. I am very fortunate. I am a Scottish Celt. I am in touch with my roots and with my heritage and with my cultural history. I have a land from which I hail. There is something there for me, and I'm extremely privileged. I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity to have that kind of thing. Because right, I'm going to say black people. And when I say in this context, it came out a little bit awkwardly, and it's because I'm referring to capital B black people as in people who used to have some kind of ancestral heritage, but they don't know what that ancestral heritage is because they were stolen from their nation, and now all of the records tying them to their family and to their place of geographical origin have all been obliterated. Right? Those are real people. That's a real situation that many African Americans have had to deal with, is that there are no records. There is no history for them. No way to trace back their lineage. So I consider myself extremely fortunate, privileged, to be able to have some kind of information, something that can help forge my own identity, right? A way that I can establish myself as a being in the world that isn't tied to American white, right? I'm very, very lucky and very grateful to have that opportunity. Can I say one my little preoccupation? I don't get that there. Uh, Not to mention the obliteration of African history. True, true, true. Um, I swear this was in another live stream of politics. Yeah, that's what we're all talking about. Uh, yeah. Okay, so I'm trying to decide if I'm still going to try and have the distinction between truth and knowledge. I don't think that I'm going to. And that phone call that I got a short while ago reminded me of the thing that I have to do. And I will need to cut stream a little bit early to go get ready for that thing that I need to do this evening. Is it too late to abort RFK? Little bit, yeah. Uh, Someone ask his mom. Yeah, I'm pro-choice too, full stop. And interestingly enough, when it comes to the morality of abortion, I don't know that I agree, or no, I'll say I don't know that I believe that. No, that's not what I want to say. It may be the case that in a lot of cases, abortion is not morally permissible for the people who choose to do that, based on my own understanding of the world and what I think is right for people to do. Right? I think that in a lot of cases that people opt for abortion, I would deem those decisions to be not good moral decisions, or not the kind of moral decisions that I would support and endorse. However, it is under no circumstance my right to tell other people what is right about the world, and especially what is right about their own bodies. And it is doubly especially not right for us to appoint some government body who is going to be the boss over whether you have autonomy over your body. You do. You simply should have the right to autonomy over your own body, period. Period. No matter what anybody else believes about abortion. Actually, there is a disconnect there, right? It's not a neat disconnect, right? When we're talking about certain kinds of moral thresholds. If somebody breaks into my house, I don't care what their intentions are. There is a way that I'm going to react to somebody breaking into my house. What their intentions are doesn't matter. Why they're there doesn't matter. Their circumstances doesn't matter. None of those things factor into my moral decision about what I am going to do for me to protect myself and my home. Right? In some moral choices, the intention of the other person matters, right? And abortion is not one of those cases. It doesn't matter what the fetus intends or what the fetus wants. Its moral considerability is a whole ass separate conversation. People have the right to autonomy over their own body. Period. right? So that's kind of my view on abortion. And actually, when it comes to the morality of abortion, I've been studying this academically for decades. And I'm not sure what the morally right thing to do is with regard to abortion. And it doesn't matter what I believe. I'm not a pregnant person. The only opinions that matter with regard to whether abortion is morally permissible are pregnant people and maybe also medical professionals who might have to administer an abortion, right? Nobody else's opinion fucking matters. Period. Oh, there's all kinds of stuff going on here. Good. Silk Road running from Africa to China. Think that maybe there should be some limitation because people just abuse sex and drugs because of possibility of to do abortion so easily. I don't think that that's true at all, Darius. I think that that's something, Darius. When you make this claim, maybe should be some limitation because people just abuse sex and drugs because of the possibility. Source. Where's your source? I've been studying abortion academically for decades. It is not the case that people just go get abortions. It's not easy. It's not a quick and painless procedure. It's not inexpensive. I don't know where you get the impression that people are just running around getting abortions like it's not a big deal. Said to me that I was a fascist and never saw a woman. Right. Well, in a lot of cases, Darius, you will get labeled as a fascist for being anti-abortion because it implies that people don't have the right to make their own decisions. There is one rule about what people do with regard to abortion, and it's usually some kind of Christian dogma. And if you don't believe that, then they will literally execute you for not believing that. That's the whole argument, and it is fascist actually. And I'm sorry if this hurts your feelings, right? Instead of having your feelings hurt about being called fascist, just think about why it is that you're being called that, right? Instead of being defensive, instead of being upset about having been called fascist, instead of having your feelings hurt, don't do all that because you're centering yourself rather than focusing on what people are trying to tell you about the world, right? If people make accusations of you like that you're racist or that you're sexist, don't argue about those. Reflect. Think about why people might be making those claims about the things that you have said. Because telling other people that they don't have a right to their own bodily autonomy is a fascist viewpoint. It literally is. Often offensive to me. Right, but there are lots of different kinds of fascism. Okay, lots of stuff going on in chat. European conservatives' values are rooted in Catholicism, so being atheist is rather a facile defense. No, that's okay. Good. We're caught up. To be clear, Darius, it is not the case that somebody is calling you fascist because you have a different opinion. Believing that other people don't have a right to bodily autonomy such that the government gets to execute those people is fundamentally fascist. Is fundamentally, that's a fascist belief. That it's okay for the government to take away people's rights over their own body is not an okay thing to defend, right? And if you want to talk about having certain kinds of restrictions on abortion, that's not necessarily the same thing, right? There's nuance to be had here. Because one of the things that I urge my students is to think about, welcome in, Street Cat Love, it's good to see you, is to think about thresholds for the other side, right? If you want to say that abortions are sometimes morally impermissible, right? Then what you need to do is to assess when they are morally permissible and then make that threshold clear. If you want to say that they're morally permissible, you want to think about situations in which they're not morally permissible, and you want to make that threshold clear, right? There are cases in which it should not be allowed for somebody to just decide they want to yeet a fetus, but that's a different kind of situation. That's a different kind of statement than women shouldn't have access to abortion, right? Right. No, Darius, you're operating under a very, very narrow definition of fascism. And I get that. The way that we are taught to think about fascism is intentionally facile. It's intentionally ineffective. It's intentionally not enough. I would recommend, Darius, that you reach out, that you look into Umberto Eco and the work that they have done talking about the different ways that fascism presents itself. Thank you, Baza Belinsky. I am a professor, not a bro. That is absolutely true, and I really appreciate you saying that. The fascism is a complete repression of other thoughts, and I thought this concept is losing its value by using it so much. No, I mean, no, I get that. Fascism is not complete repression. Fascism can take many different forms. Think of it more like a spectrum. It's not going to be it's not going to be two boxes, and in one box is not fascism, and in the other box it is fascism. That's not at all the way to think about it. It is the case that it is a spectrum. It's a big spectrum, and it can start off in little ways like what we're seeing here in the United States, where we are losing the right to peaceably assemble. We haven't lost it entirely, but we are losing. We are losing protections, legal protections that we have when we are arrested or accused of unpeaceably demonstrating, I guess I should say. We're losing a lot of the protections of due process, right? We are in a fast cascade into a further fascism. What America is, the United States right now, is a fascist police state. It is, and it was already. It was before Trump was elected, actually. It is a fascist police state which won't allow other ideas like communism or socialism to take root here. And it will punish and murder those people if it has to, right? And it's no, that it's a very Umberto, echo, 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 echo. Um, it's and again, I want you to move away from that binary, Darius. Don't think about it as a binary system, and certainly don't think because we have democracy that it can't be fascism, because it certainly can. Well, what we have is not democracy. First off, what we have is a representative democracy where we elect oligarchs, and then those oligarchs, well, excuse me, we elect elected officials, and then those elected officials appeal to the oligarchs who make all of the decisions for us. So we don't really have a democracy in the United States either, and most Western industrialized nations are not democratic, right? Think, don't get distracted with the oligarchs. Think about the fact that all of the nations that you're thinking about right now that are all free democratic nations, name one that has any democracy. They're all representative constitutional democracies. Also, not a real democracy. I want to say that, well, you might actually kind of have me a little bit here. There are pockets. I don't know if they still exist, but I remember in the years leading up to the pandemic and then after the pandemic, there were several pockets of neighborhoods in Italy that had entirely liberated themselves. And they were autonomous, anarchist autonomous zones in little pockets in Italy. Those places might still exist, and if those places have democracies, which I doubt, then there might be some caveat for that. But I don't know if those pockets are even still around. It's been a while since I've thought to look into them. Westminster system is to democracy, capitalism is to the commons. Oh, wow. Wow. That's a really good analogy. I like that. No, absolutely. Real democracy isn't really a utopia. No, I completely agree with that. Good, Darius. Absolutely. I am undemocratic. There's something that I've talked about a few times on the stream. I think democracy is a terrible idea. I really do. I think that, in fact, I think that democracy is how we got people like RFK in positions of power. Somebody who has absolutely no knowledge, no credibility, no authority, no demonstrative credibility to actually do the job. Somehow still got elected into that position, right? Though he was appointed. I guess that's really not a good example. But that's true for most of our elected positions. Most of our elected officials are babbling idiots that have enough money that they can have a successful campaign and get elected into a position. We don't elect leaders because they're competent and able, and because they're skilled at leading, at advocating for our beliefs. We vote them in. An uneducated, a politically illiterate population vote for whoever makes the most sense to them. A completely ignorant, politically illiterate populace elects idiots into positions of power, and then those idiots in the positions of power make terrible decisions. That's how most of our countries have been running for hundreds of years now. Just as enclosure turned shared land into private property. Westminster system turns shared governance into representative politics, where once everyone deliberated, as in the Rungas, I mispronounced that, as in the Renanga, we are now invited to choose between pre-selected rulers every few years. Enclosure in both forms narrows the field of belonging. Thank you, Kayamatara, too, for unpacking that. I meant to take a second and unpack the comment when you made it before, and then I got distracted. But no, I think that's really good. That analogy just slaps. It really nails it. I think that you've hit that pretty hard. How can I say that democracy is a bad idea? Okay, we'll still keep talking about it. Democracy requires an underclass or empire. Both. Right. It requires a ruling class and a ruled class still. Well, not, it depends. It could not. It does. So it does by and large, but it could not. It doesn't necessarily. Right. So I almost don't want to push back on that at all, but it could not. We see a world now moving away from Western democratic empire. I hope so. Bazabolinski, I hope so. We see the world moving away from Western democratic empire. I really hope so. Judge Francis Dart Fenton said, no system of government that the world ever saw can be more democratic than the power of the Maoris. The chief alone has no power. The whole tribe deliberate on every subject, not only politically, on such as are of public interest, but every judicially. But even judicially, they hold their comites on every private quarrel. Right. In ordinary times, the vox populi determines every matter, both internal and external. No individual employees influence or exercises power unless it originates with the mass and is expressly or tacitly conferred by them. A kind of pantocracy. Okay, good. Vox populi. Good word, too. I don't get to use that enough. Vox populi. We see a global system of equality establishing itself in the BRICS system. Ah, that's what you're talking about. Yeah. BRICS has a lot of stuff going on that does give me reason to be optimistic. For example, in Italy, we have parliament. We elect everyone here that makes decisions. It tells us those programs. So why it should be bad. The problem of a liberal system is not the pluralistic democracy as ours should be. Okay, so the problem is Darius. So this is something that we've talked about over and over and over again on this stream. So for a lot of you, it's going to be the same old. Right. So it is the case. Follow me with this, Darius. Okay. So I want you to think about what it means for you to have a right. You're over here. I want you to think about what it means for you to have a right. If somebody does something which interferes with your freedoms, what then do you do? Right? What do you do when somebody has interfered with your rights? Right. You go to some other party. so that you can have rights. So what you have just said to me is that you don't have rights. Just think about this for a minute. You don't, because if you really had real rights, if you had real freedom, then when your freedom is interfered with, you have recourse because the rights are yours. If you have to go to the police or if you have to appeal to the state, then the state has your rights. The state has all of the rights and decides when it is appropriate to recognize your naturally given rights. You don't have them. You don't have rights. Your state does. Because of the way that we have organized our societies. We should be in control of our rights. We should have the power and the freedom to advocate for ourselves and to make our communities safe and to do everything that is in accord with our own happy flourishing. We should be able to do that. None of us can. We all must appeal to mechanisms of the government. You want to have a business, if you want to have children, if you want to drive on the road, if you want to do anything, you have to go through your government. You have to ask permission from the government. You have to get the government to allow you to do things, anything, everything. Right. You're just going to have to keep coming back, Darius. There's so many conversations that we need to have much more deeply. But it's getting close to 5 o'clock, and I really do need to get out of here. So again, same thing I had Wednesday. This is a terrible place to leave it. But that's okay. And I didn't talk about most of the things that I had planned to talk about, most of the things that I wanted to talk about. Thank you. Thank you all so much. I just appreciate the heck out of that that we have had this amazing, meaningful, deep conversation about a whole bunch of stuff. Why Maori democracy was seen as a threat? Yes. Right. Capitalism is not another form of the commons, just as a Westminster system is not another form of democracy. They are enclosures of them, right? This is like the unfreedom idea, right? The thing that we think of as freedom when we are talking about it's not. It usually the thing that we're pointing to is the facade of freedom that really just shows us the boundaries and borders that exist. Right. They are enclosures of them. What liberals call apathy or selfishness when we Maori disproportionately don't vote, then is our ancestral nervous system saying, be aware of closure, beware of enclosure, right? Absolutely, Darius. Thank you for sticking around, and for having some meaningful discourse. I was a little bit concerned that that we were not going to be able to have meaningful discourse, but you, here we are. So I'm happy. I'm very happy to have you here. I hope you come back and talk to us some more. Oh, let me feel free to join the Discord. That way you can know when I'm going live. Assuming that Jane is here to remind me to actually put the going live notification on Discord. So thank you again, Jane, for all of your help. Thank you everyone for all of your comments, all of your support, all of the amazing, just being amazing. You are all amazing, and that you come here and be amazing with me is just really great. I enjoy the heck out of it. So but like I said, I kind of have to make a hasty egress. So Let's find a raid target and get me out of here. Yeah, let's slide over. Oh, DJ Che is streaming. We're gonna go see DJ Che. Because they are just an amazing human and a really great streamer, and their voice is just magic. They're one of my favorite streamers to just listen to, like to have on in the background. Like David Attenborough. That's that their voice is magic in the way that David Attenborough's voice is magic. Uh, Ete ano. Ete ano. Thank you, you too, Kimatara. Take care. Thank you, Buzza Belinsky. Thank you so much for being here too. Thank you for stopping by, having some amazing conversations. I was not so just thank you. Yeah, I hope to see more of you. Come back and have some more of these conversations. Did it not start the raid? Did it not start the raid? Well, that doesn't look right. Oh, no, I didn't push the button. There you go. No, I didn't start the raid. Now we are. Matt, thank you for being mod. Thank you. I mean, you didn't really have to do your mod duties today, but I was really grateful to have you here today. And in case I needed a sword. And it was good to have you in chat anyways. You're always a treat. My chatters are so funny. You guys tell such great jokes, keep me laughing so much. I just appreciate you. Anyways, I've got to get out of here. Until the next time I see you all, be excellent to each other. No,